Hey everyone, welcome back to Small Business Chronicles. It's become your Swiss Army knife for business. We've done everything from emotional intelligence to how to network to etiquette. If you've got the cojones to go out and be an entrepreneur and to go out and strap this business thing to your back, a lot of us get in the same sort of rut of copying everybody else, being that soulless businessman with a card that's just going to networking groups and being plastic on LinkedIn and all that. And if you ever wonder how to break above that noise, I'm an example of that. You got to be different. And if anybody knows me, you sure as hell know that I'm different. And to that, my guest today is Roy Osing. He's written the book on being different. And I don't even mean that as a cool little dad joke. He's literally written the book on how to excel being different. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks so very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Man, the show that everybody should have heard just went on in our pre-interview, and I hate that. So we're going to do our best not to recreate it, but to continue this authentic conversation about being different. It's I've always tell people that if you ever want to know what my beliefs are, I went to the church of George Carlin. That's what I did, right?
Love to.
Right. And talking to you, Carlin was horribly against business. He made fun of marketing and business ad nauseum, like he just constantly did. But when you enter it using his philosophy, when you enter business, even if you're going to participate in business, has kind of been what I've done to understand where those molds are to break. So let's do a little introduction with you. Tell us about you. One of my first questions on my show is, why should we trust you? Why, out of all the noise on the internet, why is yours special?
Yeah, well, I mean, for the very simple reason that I've actually done it. Okay, so, doing it is one thing. Talking about it is another thing. Well, I'm a doer. I had the fortune of being asked to take a startup internet company, data and internet company, and do something with it. And by doing some rather audacious things, we took the business to $1 billion in sales. And so the reason that you should listen to me is the stuff that we did actually works. It's not theoretical frickin' mumbo jumbo. It's not sort of academic ideologies. This is practical how-to stuff that works in the real world with intense competitors, fickle customers, and biased employees. And that's why you should listen to me. And I've been doing this, Ryan. I wrote my first book in 2009, for heaven's sakes. I left my real job as a president of a data company in the early 2000s. And so I've been spending a lot of time talking to people about this whole notion of being different and why it's so important, not just to businesses, but to individuals, okay, and families and personal lives. It's so important. So I'm trying to make a difference by changing the narrative about there that's going on about there, which, to your point, is really inundated with copying. And so I'm the guy that's actually created the tool set to go to $1 billion. Now, you don't have to do that, but if you want to grow personally or grow your business, I've got some stuff that is kind of fun and actually works.
So let's pick up on being different. Let's start with this conversation. What are we trying to be different from? What are the things? Because I think to be different, you have to realize what you're trying to separate yourself from.
Yeah, well, sort of, it's a world of differentiation. And it occurred to me, and I discovered really early on, that to make a difference from a business perspective, you had to find a way to be different from your competitors in a way that your customers cared about. I'm not talking about being different for the sake of being different, right? I don't care about what your sexual orientation is. I don't care about what the color of your hair is. What I care about is how you intend to satisfy me, I'm speaking as a customer now, in a way that's different than my competitors. And so I learned that we need to be constantly figuring out a way to meaningfully differentiate ourselves from the people that we're competing with. And it applies to your career because there's always competitors for jobs, et cetera. Why should I hire you, Ryan, as opposed to Bill next door, who also just beat me up with his resume? Okay, it's really, really important. And so I started trying to figure out how to do this in a world, quite frankly, even today is mediocre. all right, in terms of differentiating themselves from their competitors. The question that's really not well answered today is, why should I do business with you and not your competition? Okay, it's really good in terms of telling me what you think you are, and that's the narcissism 101 issue. Okay, but it's woefully inadequate. Okay, of actually explaining to me in granular terms why I should buy from you and not your competition. And so I've been playing with this and executing on this for like 40 years. Okay, and it was one of the main reasons we actually got the kind of growth kick up, right, that we got in this internet business to take it to $1 billion in annual sales. By the way, that business today is $18 billion a year.
Oh,
so
man.
I like to think that we kind of got it going, right?
That is definitely a proof of concept. You have 18 and a B with $1 billion. That's so. What are some of the things that you did different with that company? You're talking about differences and being different. Give us some realistic examples of different things you did with that company to achieve your success.
Oh wow, we could do it. We could do a show on each one of these because the reality is, and I want everybody to get this, there is no one single thing. There is no one formula. In fact, it isn't formula driven. There's no silver bullet. Okay, so what I would say to you is there's a whole bunch of small, relevant, compelling, simple things that you have to do to get growth. And it's all about lighting fires in people, making them believe, making them follow, making them perform at a level that they can't even imagine. So it starts out with what's your plan? Okay, now I'm not a fan of strategic planning as practiced today. Okay, it's way too expensive. It takes way too long to do. And it sucks, quite frankly. All right. So I had to create my own. And I created my own process called strategic game planning. And I called it game planning very, very intentionally, because a game plan is all about what? It's all about execution. You see, the strategic process that people use these days is all about the efficacy of the plan. It's all about the pristineness of the direction. We need to get the direction exactly right. Really? In a world that's imprecise, chaotic, and imperfect, unpredictable, uncertain, you think you can get the plan right? Well, good on you, narcissist. It ain't going to happen, okay?
No.
So I figured that out. So what I did is I created a strategic game planning process that loosens up on the plan and tightens up on execution, okay? And that was fundamentally the strategy. I've created a plan that is actually developed by answering 3 questions. How big do you want to be, which is a statement of growth? Who do you want to serve, which is definition of targets? How are you going to compete and win, which is all about differentiation? I do this today in 48 hours with clients. So they walk in, they walk out on the 49th hour, they can actually execute something that is meaningful. And it's all based on this whole concept of how are we going to get different? How are we going to reframe the business to be the only one that it does? In fact, I had to create a tool called the only statement. Yeah, we're not better, we're not best, we're not number one, but we are the only ones who do what we do. And that's a key part of this whole process. I had to create that. Well, you have to move to be the only. And so that planning process was completely unheard of. In fact, today, Ryan, I got to tell you, I'm the only one that does it. I'm the only one that does it. That's that only statement, that first things first, is one of my favorite quotes ever is by Mike Tyson. And it says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And whether that is a proverbial punch or a real punch, your plans change because it went from I'm going to go be successful to let me pick my teeth up. Like that's a big that's a big shift. So if you make these plans and you hardcore down and something goes wrong, what's next? What are you going to do? You have to learn how to pivot. You have to learn how to be better. You have to learn how to do those, because that plan, like you said, is never a straight line. It's never as success is never and will never be a straight full line. So how do you plan that straight full line? I'm agreeing with you 1,000%. And like I said, to follow up that only statement, that's one of the things that I've incorporated. I'm the only one that does this. I'm the only one. You have a line of people doing the same things. How do you step out of that line if you're not doing the only thing different? Well, I kind of love to talk about my favorite story is, and maybe a few of your listeners will remember the most famous and profitable touring band in history out of the 60s called the Grateful Dead.
I've heard a thing or two. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a deadhead like you wouldn't believe, am I a dead? But the thing that I want to talk about is the lead guitar player, a guy by the name of Jerry Garcia, was not only a great guitar player. I mean, he was an unbelievable business person in a world where social media didn't exist. Nope. The internet didn't exist. It was one of those things. And he came up with this quote that resonated with me. In fact, after I was working for a while on my only statement, I actually hit this. So I didn't copy him. I'd like to think he copied me back in the 60s. That's probably not the case. But he said, you don't want merely to be the best of the best. You want to be the only one that does what you do. And so that's kind of like that's the path and journey he took, which of course I totally agree with. It's that process that we need to talk about as businesses. We need to talk about as individuals. We need to talk about as young professionals. How can you carve out your special place in the world that matters to other people? And that's the key part of this. It's not about what you think of yourself. It's about how unique you are in satisfying the needs of others, because that's the competitive space. And that's the context you need to figure out. And so I've been working. I mean, that was a key element of my strategy way back in the day. And I keep doing it. Hell, I'm a grandfather of 4 kids. I practice being the only papa that does certain things with my grandkids. And you know what? They go, wow, Papa, that's really cool. And I go, success.
That drive to be unique, because you mentioned narcissism, which I get that's what there's preaching business, and that's what they preach and whatever. And everybody has to look in and see how they're unique. But after that, you've got to figure out how to take that uniqueness and serve people. Just like you with your grandkids of making them happy, making them fulfilled. You've got to do the same thing in business. You can be unique, but you can't be self-serving as well.
Well, it starts out, I agree with you, but it starts out with doing the hard work in terms of discovering what people care about. Okay, like this is all about, like, I'm absolutely not a fan of mass anything. Mass markets don't exist. Okay, they're multiples of one person, and you need to understand that. And so from a business point of view, when you identify what your target market is, I call them customer groups that you want to serve, you need to do the hard work to figure out what they care about, not what they need. Okay, there's a huge difference about what they need, which actually leads you into a commodity play, because everybody's there and they compete on price, into figuring out what they care about. Caring is all about emotion. It's about passion. Okay, and it's really price insensitive. Okay, there's a strategic reason why you want to go at what people care about, is because A, there's very few people competing in that space. And secondly, it's not price sensitive. You can figure that out, what they care about. Now you have the focus of your only work. Okay, so you don't want to be the only one and preach this to a mass market. If Ryan is my target market, my job, okay, is to figure out what he cares about, and then figuring out how I can satisfy and serve that caring factor in a way that nobody else does. And that's a piece that's missing. Okay, so we still have a tendency to define what we think makes us special and then promulgate that to the market. Okay, what we need to do is take a step back, be really diligent in terms of who we want to serve, and then do a deep dive in that to find out what they care about, then start to create. And sometimes you have to reframe yourself, Ryan, because sometimes you are not unique, okay, in terms of what they care about. And so my only work quite often is helping a business reframe itself once they discover what their target market cares about. Because you have to reframe it to define what you need to be unique in, as opposed to what you are today. And that's a huge piece of work that's not done by anybody else, my friend.
No, and I love that message of uniqueness, and you do, and to define that uniqueness, you kind of got to go learn the rules. I tell my kids this, is that if you want to break the rules, you got to know the rules. You have to know how the rules function, what they do, and you got to know on Tuesday, Daddy might have one too many scotches. You can get away with everything, but you have to know those rules. And I feel it's the same way. And what I've done to find that uniqueness is that's it. The first foray into anything that I've done, whether it be insurance or podcasting or whatever, I'm a basic bitch. I just go do whatever everybody else is doing to kind of learn it. But at that point, you have to make that left turn to go, all right, because you got to study your environment. You got to study your thing. You got to study and you put that hard work. I know that as this podcasting thing grows, I've probably spent 4 or 5 hours in the last 2 days researching lighting, researching equipment, researching ways to produce these things better, ways to do. And that's that hard work that makes you unique, because anybody can pop on a Zoom call and record it and call it a podcast. But how do you differentiate? Out of 1.5 million podcasts out there, how is mine different? How is mine going to be different? How am I going to serve people in a unique manner? I let people curse on my show. That seems to do it.
Well, I mean, I don't know what number this is, but it's probably, I'm pretty close to having been a guest for about 100 podcasts in the last year. Just because it's for me, it's a very comfortable way to talk about my content, et cetera. And so, like, I have a profile, like, I know what I care about when it comes to this. And the reality is there's a lot of hosts, you're not one of them, but a lot of hosts actually struggle with it because they haven't done the work. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Like, one of the things that I'm quite heavy into social media. So I love leveraging podcasts in my social media network. But one of the things I like to do is create clips, okay, like 20, 25-second clips. Yeah. There's very few people, okay, that actually will come back to me as a guest and say, okay, here's 4 clips, right, that I've taken out of that around concepts that I think my audience, your audience in this case, would actually benefit from. Have at them. Okay, so that's just an example, and it's so helpful to me because then I don't have to do it. Well, first of all, I can't do it because it's your content, right? So I can't screw around with it, and yet it's something that I care about. My network wants snippets of what Roy is saying, right? Mm-hmm. They want a snippet around a dumb rule. They want a snippet around cut the crap. They want a snippet around hiring for goosebumps because that's what I am, right? They don't want to have to wade through 30 minutes. And so that piece of work is so important. And I find that yourself excluded, very, very few people take that dive, and they're missing a lot.
No, that's one of the things we do with every show that we produce. We got one guy, that's all he does, is that that's what he does. And here's where you got to stop doing excuses too and being overwhelmed is with AI, with everything out there. There's tools now that runs an audio transcript. You give it keywords, it'll cut it out and hand it to you. It takes literally. It takes literally 10 minutes to do the thing that you're talking about, but nobody's doing it. They're overwhelmed by it. They don't want to do it. They just don't have that vision of, okay, I did this 30-minute podcast. We're 2 middle-aged white dudes babbling about shit you may or may not care about. Are you really going to wade through all of that? Or if I release the clip of going, hey, we're 2 white dudes that are babbling about shit, middle-aged white guys, that's the clip. That's the social media clip, because they're like, all right, let's go see what the rest of these guys are talking about. Because without that advertising, you got nothing.
Yeah, exactly right. And you got to ask people, like, what is it that you want? What do you desire? Yeah. Like, I keep thinking about that TV show, right? About that devil dude out of Los Angeles, and he would always say to people, he said, "Well, what do you really care about? What's your real desires? What do you desire?" Well, that's the kind of conversation, not in that manner, of course, but that's the kind of conversation we need to have with the people we want to serve, because nobody else is doing it. That's the beauty of this. I mean, it's a blue ocean, okay? It's a blue ocean. Yeah. Well, there I just figured one out. Thank you, Ryan. I figured out a blue ocean.
Right. There you go. Collaboration, man. Collaboration.
There you go. Boom.
That's what it is. Man, what are some other, because we usually go 20, 30 minutes here. We're at 20. I'm enjoying talking to you. So let's extend a little bit. Let's go in other different ways.
Sure.
Of just how to be different. I want to talk about, and I got a couple questions for you about being different. We were talking in the pre-interview a little bit about networking, networking, LinkedIn, and you said you're big into social media. There's a lot of noise on social media. There's tons of it. There's a bunch of plastic people with their business cards out. So give us just a few practical tips on how to differentiate yourself in networking, whether it be virtual or real life. Because purple hair, piercings, that's the wrong type of different probably for the environment you're going to. So how do you do that differentiate in those environments?
Well, for me, it's all about credibility and currency. Okay, because the content is so important. If you don't have content that people care about, again, I go back to my thing. If you don't have content that people care about, then shut the fuck up. Okay, that's all I can say. So you have to have that. You have to have that. Seriously, you have to have that. And so I have the benefit of having content that seems to resonate. Now, the problem with that I have is like, I got to take it further. I'm not touching enough people. And so I'm still learning, okay, because that's what this is. It's a learning process. I'm still learning how to take my content out there. And so, man, I'm learning about social media. I'm learning about all that stuff day in and day out. So I'll never have it completely figured out, but I'm okay with that. Okay, so I believe in learning on the run. Okay, so I'm going to try something. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to do it again, because that's what life is. It's a virtual do loop that just keeps going and going and going. But at the base, at the core, is content and credibility, and actually exactly the ability to answer the question that you started this podcast with. Why should I listen to you, Roy? Okay, if you can't answer that question, okay, with proof of concept, as you said, then you need to deal with that puppy before you even go close to social media. Because if you go to social media, then you end up to be superficial. You end up to be plastic. Nobody will believe you. You can't network with somebody that doesn't give a shit about what you're saying. And every time you open your mouth, they go bullshit. I mean, right. So spend some time being an expert on what you do. Okay. And being able to say, hey, listen, Ryan, I'm the only one that talks about the only statement. I'm the only one that's created a planning process that you can literally do in 48 hours. I challenge anybody to say to me that, you know, they're doing that too. And so that piece is really super important. And unfortunately, the world is so busy, right? So busy that people don't want to take the time to do that work first. And I implore you, take the time.
My follow-up question to that is, I know that I'm different. I go out there, I do different things. I stand out. I've always been this way. And I figured out in business that did resonate me a lot of success, but it also got me a lot of criticism too. That's one of the things that comes with being different. That's just going to be part of it. It's a side effect, right? How do you deal? Because there's a lot of people, I think, trying to be different, but they get that little pushback or they get that little bit of criticism and they want to give up on being different. How in your life and doing different things have you dealt with that? Yeah.
So again, it's because people think that they want to be different for the sake of being different. And that's not what this is about. Okay, this is being different in a way the people you choose to serve care about. And so when you decide to be different in a way they care about, you will never get pushback. That's the beauty of this thing. But if you take what you think, right, makes you different and propel that and splatter that to the masses, yeah, you'll get pushback because you're gonna be talking to some people that don't give a shit about what you're saying. That's not what you want to do. You want to talk to people that care about what you do. And that's the competitive space. That's the piece where you need to stand out. You will never get feedback or you'll never get pushback from them if you've defined what they care about right, and if you're unique, okay, in a way that's relevant to that and truthful. You will never get pushback. The pushback comes when you're being a narcissist, right? And you promulgate what you believe you are out there, and you run head on into people that first of all don't believe you, or say that's not important to me, or they just say bullshit. Okay. So that the beauty of the process is you'll never get the pushback. Never get the pushback. But there's other elements, okay, from a personal point of view that I think might help people, okay, within that context. And one is be imperfect. It's okay to be imperfect. Okay, perfection doesn't exist anyways. Okay, no. So be imperfect fast. Okay, be imperfect fast because you're going to have to move on and try other things. Another element that works really well for me personally is the surprise factor. Surprise people. Okay, again, you know what they care about. Surprise them. Give them something they're not expecting. And guess what they're going to say? They're going to, wow, I mean, I didn't see that coming. They will remember you. They will tell other people about you. So there's some things in there that we could talk about if we had the time that on a personal basis has worked really, really well for me. And they're fun to do and they resonate with people. But going back to this thing, understand who you want to serve, understand what they care about, be unique in the way you serve that. You will never get pushback.
Roy, it's been such a pleasure having you. And we talked secret coming out. I got a new show that I'm in process of working out, and I can't wait to have you on that show.
Yay.
And we'll do a deeper dive. Drop the F-bomb a few more times. So that I mean, like how can you not enjoy a business show that you get to curse on, right? So, Roy, let us know where to find you, how to find you. You've written several books. You seem like a very personable guy. So how do my listeners and the people in my orbit get connected to your orbit?
I have a website, bedifferentorbedead.com. So come and visit me there. I've provided, I've been blogging this stuff since 2009. So there's a lot of content there on Be Different or Be Dead. So take a look at that. If you're interested in looking at the books, there's a page on that. But look at, and I blog every week too. So I try and keep it alive. I learn from conversations like this, right? I really do. I learn more about my stuff. It's wonderful. And the other thing, I got an email address, roy.osing@gmail.com. And I'm really happy to have a conversation, Ryan, with anybody on this stuff. I get people sending me their draft only statements and say, hey, Roy, I heard your podcast. Here's my only statement. What do you think? And we have a conversation about this. Wonderful. Right. I mean, just a wonderful thing for me. So I really encourage engagement, and I'm here to help. I'm trying to give stuff back, mate. That's where I am.
Absolutely. Roy, I can't wait to have another conversation with you. This is my wheelhouse. This is my jam. As my kids would say, I love the vibe.
There you go.
So I don't understand them for sure. Anyway, but anyway, this has been Small Business Chronicles. This is a production of Titan Media Works. You can check out all of our shows on the Small Business Delivered Podcast Network on smallbusinessdelivered.com. Also, please, if you want to have your own podcast, if you want to do this is something that we offer to the masses. It's not free, but it's definitely cheaper than what else is out there. Cheap not being a bad term. We're trying to do a budget. Your time is expensive. Your equipment is expensive. All of those things are expensive. So we try to do everything we can to help you get in the seat so you can host your own podcast. You can email me at Ryan@TitanMediaWorks. That's works with an X. WORX.com. Check out our other two shows. We've got Neil DiPentino, Business Breakthroughs. He talks to business coaches, gets some real world answers to some real world problems. And Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show. If you're a marketing guy, girl, whatever you identify as, you need to go check out that show. It's all marketing all the time.